I was walking home, completely drained after another long day at work, when something ahead caught my eye, something that didn't make sense. It was just past 11 p.m., that still hour when the world feels paused. The streetlights buzzed softly, my boots echoed on the damp pavement, and my thoughts drifted somewhere between exhaustion and routine. My name's Ethan, 38 years old, a construction foreman for a company that values overtime more than family. Late nights were normal for me. But what wasn't normal was seeing my wife's car parked 2 blocks from our home, right outside a small cafe that should have been closed hours ago. At first, I thought my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. But the dent on the bumper, the faded parking sticker, it was definitely Mara's car. I slowed down, peering through the rain-smeared glass. The cafe lights were dim, not dark. A single table glowed under the soft flicker of a candle. And there she was, my wife, sitting across from a man I didn't recognize. I froze. The world shrank to that single image framed by the window. They weren't touching, but the way she leaned toward him, the warmth in her smile, told me everything I needed to know. It wasn't friendly, it was intimate, familiar. My chest tightened. For a moment, I just stood there in the rain, watching the woman I loved laugh in a way she hadn't in months. Still, part of me tried to believe there was an innocent reason. Maybe it's work-related. Maybe it's harmless. But deep down, I already knew the truth. It had sunk its claws in. I walked home slower than usual, my mind looping over every small detail, her hand brushing his, the tilt of her head, that easy smile. By the time I reached our door, I felt hollow. She came home about an hour later. Her hair was damp, her perfume stronger than usual. She looked surprised to see me awake. "Hey," she said softly, placing her purse down. "You're up late. Couldn't sleep?" "Yeah," I replied, keeping my voice steady. She gave a faint, distracted smile. "You should rest. You look exhausted." That night, I lay beside her, pretending to sleep, my mind spiraling. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was too tired to think clearly. But the more I tried to reason it away, the heavier that image pressed on my chest, her leaning close to another man, laughing like she used to with me. The next few days, I watched her differently. Small things stood out now. She guarded her phone like it held her soul. She'd step outside for calls. Her lock screen changed. Messages vanished. When I asked about work, she answered too quickly. Friday evening, I decided to test her. I told her I had another overnight shift. She didn't hesitate, just said, "Okay, be safe." No disappointment. No concern. Only freedom in her tone. But I didn't go to work. I parked 2 streets away and waited. At 8:47 p.m., she stepped out wearing a dress I'd never seen before, the kind you wear for someone new. She got in her car and drove off. I followed from a distance, my stomach nodding with every turn. She pulled into that same cafe. Same table. Same man. This time, I didn't stay outside. I walked in. The bell above the door chimed softly. Both of them looked up. Her face went pale. His shifted from confusion to guilt. I didn't speak at first. I just looked at her, then at him. Finally, I said, "The coffee here must be incredible, worth lying for." The silence that followed was suffocating. "Ethan," she began. "Don't," I said quietly. "You don't need to explain. I just wanted to see it for myself." Then I turned and left. As the rain poured down, something inside me settled. It wasn't anger I felt, it was clarity. I didn't go home that night. I drove aimlessly through the storm, the wipers fighting to keep up. The city blurred into streaks of gray and amber. My hands gripped the wheel, not out of rage, but because I needed something solid to hold on to. Eventually, I stopped at a rest area by the river, turned off the engine, and just sat there. For years, I thought love was about effort, that showing up, working hard, and staying loyal was enough. I gave everything to build a life for us, thinking she understood why. But somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing the man who came home for her. She only saw the exhaustion. When I walked through our door the next morning, the house was silent, heavy with her perfume. She sat at the kitchen table, eyes red but dry, like she'd already cried everything she could. "Ethan," she whispered. "Please don't." I cut her off. "I don't need an explanation. I saw enough." She looked down, twisting her wedding ring. "It wasn't supposed to go that far. I felt invisible." That word stung because I'd felt invisible too, just differently. "You weren't invisible, Mara," I said quietly. "You were bored. And instead of talking to me, you found someone who made you feel new again." Her lips trembled. "It's not that simple." "It never is," I replied. "Until it is." I packed a bag that afternoon. She didn't try to stop me. She just watched from the doorway, arms crossed, like someone watching a storm through the glass. Afraid, but not enough to step into it. The first few nights alone were strange. I stayed in a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind with flickering signs and paper-thin walls. Sleep came in pieces. I'd wake up reaching for her, only to find cold sheets. But day by day, something shifted. The silence stopped feeling empty. It began to feel peaceful. I started noticing the small things again. The morning light through thin curtains, the taste of coffee still hot, the sound of rain that didn't mean sadness anymore. One evening, I went back to that cafe, not to confront anyone but to reclaim it. The same table by the window was empty. The candle unlit. The air smelled faintly of espresso and wet pavement. I sat there quietly breathing. A woman at the counter glanced my way and smiled. Not the kind that means anything, just one human recognizing another. For the first time in months, I smiled back, naturally. That's when it hit me. The truth wasn't that she stopped loving me. It was that I'd been loving alone for a long time and didn't want to admit it. I'd mistaken endurance for connection. A week later, she texted, "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a while before replying. There's nothing left to say. Because really there wasn't. Some stories don't end with apologies or closure. They end quietly when one person finally decides peace is worth more than answers. I moved out of town a month later, took a job with a smaller construction crew by the coast. Life slowed down. The ocean became my new companion, endless, calm, and beautifully indifferent. I started running again, eating better, laughing more. Sometimes late at night, I think of that cafe, the moment everything cracked. But there's no bitterness left. Just gratitude. Gratitude for the lesson, the ending, and the freedom it gave me. Because I finally understood what didn't make sense that night. It wasn't her betrayal that broke me. It was realizing how long I'd been walking beside a stranger, blinded by love and routine. Now, as I stand on a quiet beach far from that old life, I've learned something simple, almost peaceful. Sometimes the most honest love story you'll ever live is the one you write when you finally learn how to walk alone.